Hi, my name is Shawn Turner, and today I will be talking about the adversity advantage written by Dr. Paul Stoltz and Eric Weinmayer. So basically, the summary of the book by Dr. Stoltz is basically Dr. Stoltz gives 7 principles to deal with adversity that we get on an everyday basis. So the first of the adversities that Dr. Stoltz talks about is take it on. So for the first part of this principle, there's a search for adversity. You should only search for adversity if your life is becoming more mundane and predictable. And with this adversity, with this challenge, you need to question, will this challenge take you to the next level? However, as a consequence, you must realize that you must not become the emotional storm chasers. Do not always be on a constant search for adversity when there's no need to search for it. Next is the adversity continuum, which is basically 5 ways that people deal with basic setbacks and disappointments. And on lowest is avoiding. And avoiding is basically just you're in denial, and it's easier going around the problem than facing the problem. Next is surviving. And surviving is immensely draining, and you're in a mind state of, well, as long as I can make it through, I'm fine. Next is coping. So you accept the fact that there is adversity, however, you're still barely keeping yourself above the surface. You're still barely surviving. After that is managing, and managing is basically trying to contain your adversity and trying to minimize the possible downside of it. And lastly, something we should all aim towards is harnessing. And with harnessing is you need to use your adversity as fuel. But this is easier said than done because honestly, it's tougher to think and pursue what could be gained from adversity. The second principle is summoning your strengths. So basically, Dr. Stolz really stressed that you should not rely on your natural strengths because honestly, if you rely on your natural strength, you're subconsciously avoiding adversity because you're not focusing on your weaknesses. So one way to solve this problem is having a team, working with a team of people, because a team of people you have different strengths and different weaknesses. And also, if you're working on an adversity, you should honestly constantly keep developing your weaknesses and turn them into your strengths. The next principle is engaging your core. C in core stands for control. So what can you do to influence this adversity? What can you do to make a difference? And it's important to note that you shouldn't underestimate what you can do. Next, O stands for ownership. So recognizing that you can make a difference and then actually doing something. Don't point the finger at other people, but don't also shoulder the entirety of the burden. Next is reach, which is the perceived extent of the adversity. So don't make the adversity seem bigger than what it is. The adversity could be a speed bump, but you're making it seem like it's an actual mountain. And lastly, it's endurance. So basically, you question how long will this adversity last, because that will help your emotional endurance. Next is pioneering possibilities, which basically means exactly what it sounds. So creating systems and new ways to accomplish the same task. And businesses do this all the time in order to stay in a constant state of growth. The fifth principle is pack light, pack right. So what are you packing? What are your obligations? And are these obligations weighing you down or are they lifting you up? In other words, you need to decipher between what the good stuff is and what the bad stuff is. Your wants versus your need. And this is extremely hard to tell the difference between your wants and your needs. Suffering is voluntary and involuntary. So you're voluntarily testing your limits, and that can be training for when involuntary suffering occurs. However, when involuntary suffering occurs, do not allow this suffering to define you. You are more than aware, you're more than a definition. And last but not least is deliver greatness every day. So you're not trying to be like Abe Lincoln or MLK every day, but you're simply focusing on the smaller things that make our life count. Resilience, compassion, goodwill. Righteous leaders exhibit these traits both when life is good and life is bad. When fully using these 7 principles, things like leading yourself, leading others, leading technology and innovation, guiding change, solving problems, serving others, they all become second nature because you deal with adversity in every facet of your life. However, it is the job of a leader to not only lead themselves, but also to respect communities in their proper direction. Within Dr. Stoltz's books, I agree with the ranking of the adversity continuum, as well as the juxtapositioning between suffering well and suffering poorly. In other words, I agree with the fact that you shouldn't allow suffering, you shouldn't allow your past to define who you are. However, on the flip side, I don't necessarily agree with the fact that you don't have to have a compelling reason to quote unquote take on a challenge or an adversity, because sometimes you find your reason why you're taking on that challenge. And another thing I don't necessarily agree with is being able to suffer well, because it's extremely difficult to be able to suffer well when we live in a society that judges people not based on their character but off the color of their skin. A couple of takeaways I took from this book is first off, not just allowing setbacks to define me, but not allowing what anybody else says categorize who I am. And another thing is just understanding want versus need. Like, I may want this cookie, but I need to drink some water instead. And yes, this book is a great read. I suggest anyone to read it. This is an amazing book. So yes, thank you for listening to my presentation. Again, my name is Shawn Turner.